Over the last week, I pulled a couple of 100 books off my shelves. I didn't count, and now that I'm sitting here talking to you about it, golly, I wish I had. I was starting to feel that sensation of the bookshelves falling in because I had books behind the stacks of books and I had books, layered on top. It was getting a little ridiculous. I receive and I read a great number of books over the course of a year. I also get books that I do not request, so lots of times I will have a stack of books going that I just do not have an interest in, but somehow they came through the door. So there's almost always a library donation pile going. My philosophy for the bookshelves is that the books on there I want to be forever books, or at least books that I had a genuine interest in. I have no interest in keeping the books that I didn't like that much, books that were just okay, or books that I just got. I don't want books for the sake of having books. I want the reads that I keep to be reads that I really enjoyed and that I would consider reading again, or that I just like to look at and remember. So in order to keep that going, I feel like a at least yearly purge is really necessary. I think this is my second time doing it this year. So what I do is I go through by genre, or however you have it organized. So for me, that's like mood genre. So I essentially just go through each shelf, and there are some books right away, like I don't really need this anymore. And there are some books that you might question it a little bit, and then I usually ask myself a few things, like how much do I really enjoy it? How much do I remember about it? Because I feel like if I can't remember it, then what am I even doing with it? Clearly, it didn't make that good of an impression, so it's probably time to let it go. And the last thing I ask is, would I lend this to someone or recommend it to someone? Because if it's not something I would recommend to somebody, then it's not something I would probably recommend to myself. So again, why am I keeping it? So those are a few questions I ask myself and maybe would help you the next time you declutter. Now, as I'm going through these shelves and pulling books off, I'm making basically 3 piles. I have one pile for my give to family and friends. Usually that's duplicates of books. Sometimes I get a paperback and a hardback. So if I am ready to let one of those go, I'll put that in that stack because it was a really good book and I would love for my family and friends to read it and I want to share it with them. Then there's a maybe stack, which are books that I kind of feel like I probably should get rid of, but I'm kind of debating it for too long on the shelf. If I'm staring at that thing for a minute or two too long, or I'm thinking in my head well, do I really want to? I'll just put it in the maybe stack to come back to it later because I don't want it to hold up the whole process. And then the last stack is, of course, the donate pile, get rid of it pile. And that should be ideally the biggest stack. This time I ended up giving about 10 books to my mom, some really good books in there, a few ARCs that I had received because you can't sell ARCs and a lot of the places you donate to can't or won't take them. So I usually, if they're good, just pass them around to friends and family. So there are a few ARCs in there, a few duplicate copies, and I know that those are going to go around. I just gave them all to my mom and she will distribute them to family or to people at church, whatever. She'll know people and she'll be reading some of them too. So they kind of get a second life in that sense. Once I've gone through all the shelves, I'll go through the maybe pile again, and that has usually given me enough time to rethink it. I've had a moment and I can then decide donate or keep from there. And that leaves the donate pile. A lot of people probably wonder where to donate books, and I have donated a lot of books over the years to a few different places. And where I donate now is exclusively libraries or Friends of the Library, which is an organization that your local branch very likely has. The reason I do that is that I've noticed over the years that some donation centers have more respect or interest in the books than others. For example, I took quite a lot to a Goodwill down the road once. And this honestly might just be our area because we live in a really populated place. So it's not like Goodwill is really wanting for anything. So when I brought these books to Goodwill, we could see them through the window take a box of high quality books. Okay, I get new books hardcovers. I have very nice books that I receive, and I treat them with respect so that the next person can enjoy them as well. So this Goodwill person literally dumped them upside down into a huge bin of books, and it broke my heart a little, but it also signaled to me okay, Goodwill or at least our Goodwill here, does not have a need for these or really an interest in passing them along. So whenever you're trying to accomplish something like this, I always try to ask, like, is it the best way to be accomplishing it? And it seemed like Goodwill definitely wasn't the way to go. Another option is donating to prisons, which I think is awesome, but there is certain requirements for books that are acceptable to prisons. You have to find a local one or find an organization that will get them to them, and that can take a little more time and effort. Like, for example, I can't remember if it's hardcovers they don't accept or paperbacks. One of them they don't accept for some reason because I guess things can be slipped in. That's definitely something I've been interested in. It's just like it requires more effort and more thought to get those books to a prison. But yeah, so I'm definitely interested in that. It just requires more time. So if you got to be honest with yourself and say, I'm probably not going to do that, and you don't want your books sitting around forever, then your library is probably honestly the best choice. So what the library will end up doing if you donate to a Friends of the Library sale for a public library is that they will sell those books for super, super cheap, and they will have usually twice a year sales, once in the spring and once in the fall. And they usually accept good quality books throughout the entire year. The library will sell those books for like $1 or $2, and then all of that money goes right back into the library for resources, for buying new books for the library, for ebooks, and just all the stuff that a library offers, which is a lot. And I would rather have that money and those books going right back into my local community and to a place where people really appreciate it. Whenever I take them to the library, they're always so excited and appreciative because they recognize that the books I'm bringing in are really high quality. These aren't ripped apart paperbacks from 1988, okay? They're like high quality new books, and they're excited about it. They know that the next person in line is going to be excited about it too, and they're going to be able to get it super cheap. So the person getting it benefits, the library benefits. I feel like everybody wins. And I know that the next people getting these books, because they are so high quality, I know that they're going to really be interested in them because I go to those library book sales and I know the people that go to them. So it's all book people, all passionate people who love to read, and I just love sort of passing it along in that way. So if you're looking for a place to donate your books, definitely check your libraries, look up Friends of the Library, call a local branch. I drive to one like 15 minutes away because I feel like they're the best for selling. And yeah, I really think the library is the way to go. That's my preference. And I would really like to do like a prison donation in the future, but it just requires more thought and organization. So that's how I decluttered and unhauled my shelves this time. There were some interesting things I noticed about my own reading habits at the end of this year, just by going through my shelves and decluttering, and also realizing that a lot of genre sections have changed. Some genre sections have hardly grown at all over the past year. Like, for example, my mystery thrillers barely changed. I barely got any new ones that I wanted to keep, which is interesting because that speaks to the year as a whole and how that genre has been for me, and how I haven't found very many books this year in one of my favorite go-to types of reads, but also how other sections had grown a lot, and I hadn't even realized it. So my nonfiction section, which used to be about a shelf and a half, I realized now had books stacked on top. It had books behind. It was like double layered books. And I didn't even really think about the fact that I was reading so much nonfiction now, but I realized how my reading habits have changed by how much shelf space I had to allocate now. And I had to shuffle things around and look at my shelves again and say, okay, like how much space do I need for each one? What makes sense? And that was a really interesting experience in itself. So I moved some stuff around. I moved some stuff from the bedroom shelves, and I have 3 empty shelves now, and you can probably see there's just like more room to grow. You see, look at that empty space right there. So it's obviously not perfect. Like, I have to be careful about how many books I bring in, but there is now space to grow. And if you want, I'll take you over and show you them. Want to? Okay, let's go. Okay, so I'm going to take you through this fairly quickly. So up here, starting in this upper corner, these are all my mystery thrillers, and they go into my horror, which starts about here. And then that ends right there. So there's a little bit of space to grow, which is great because I know I will. And there's also some nonfiction here because I had some overflow still. So this will be where they meet eventually. This is my nonfiction TBR. I decided to separate it from this shortened stack, which if you have watched my previous bookshelf video, you know that this is where my TBR lives because I'm quite tall. So anywhere where the spines are like pulled like this, that's where I just look along and ask myself what I want to read next. And that's pretty much how that works. So that's all reserved for TBR, and that's all there is. So I really need to focus down and try not to get so many more coming in, because ideally I do not want the TBR longer than those 3 shelves. In the middle, I have this much longer height. It's like a bigger size because really it's for my coffee table books. So these are usually taller, and I wanted to accommodate that. And we also have these like magazines, which I have some vintage magazines I like to look through. Like here's a Time Life one and a Doris Day collector's edition. I love Doris Day, not gonna lie about it. And so I needed that extra space, and I just wanted to continue it so that the line makes sense, you know what I'm saying? So along this we have our nonfiction. So all of this now on the big is nonfiction, which makes sense because almost all coffee table books are nonfiction, so it makes sense. So for nonfiction, we have like by section. So these are books on the Holocaust. This is like prison reform, and then that transfers into like random nonfiction that kind of doesn't belong anywhere except for itself, like Lost Pirate, Underground. It doesn't make perfect sense. I'll probably have to go through again and ask myself some things about why they are the way they are. This is like my religion stack. I really like religion. So we've got paganism and myth on the bottom. We've got a Bible. We've got the Quran. We've got it all, honey. Whatever you want. Book of Mormon's in there too. I don't care. I read it all. So, and then we have these really fun books. This is the one of the oldest books I own. It was a Christmas gift from my husband, and I cried when I got it. Love it very much. Some cool little coffee table books. Stranger Things one. Medicinal plants. We read a lot of stuff. And then that goes into, these are like our how-to stacks. So we've got some Foxfire, some like homesteading, that's something we're interested in, home building, home maintenance, trees, like our little tiny rocks and minerals book and stuff like that. Travel books, adventure books, memoirs, like natural beauty, and like a vintage hair tutorial book. Lots of stuff, man. And then on this shelf below, we go back to a normal size, and this is all like, I'm just calling it general fiction. So there's historical fiction in there, contemporary, there's some YA. Like I have just decided not to worry about it too much, but in my mind, they go together. Don't question it. Also, in case you're wondering, this is where our shrimp lives. So he's pretty cool. We named him Shrimpy. Very original. And on the one below that, we have all of our series, mostly young adult series, but that's where they all live, so it makes more sense. They're all in one thing now. They didn't used to be all the way across, but now that's where they all live. Makes a lot of sense. Right below that, we have like kind of a middle reader section. I think that's the best way to describe it, like younger YA. It makes sense to me. And then you'll notice that I have this beautiful empty shelf, and I did this honestly because I know that my TBR is overflowing. It's overflowing right now, and I just know that more books are going to come in, and I need somewhere to put them other than the floor or underneath the coffee table. This is just, it came with a PR package, so I'm saving it for photos. And you'll notice that this shelf is wrong. We built it wrong. What are you going to do? And then lastly on these shelves is our textbooks from college, because we like to torture ourselves, I guess. I don't know. But we kept them all. They're too expensive to get rid of, you know what I mean? Still hurts when I think about how much they were. That is really it for these shelves. I guess I can show you the other 3. Why not? Let's do it. These are some classics, and they are based on color. I need to get a bookend for this because he keeps falling. But this is our entryway. So what we have in here is like scarves and mittens and things like that. And all these books are usually classics or just like funny vintage books we've gotten over the years. This is one of my favorite books of all time, by the way, Eyewitness to History. I like to like pull that out and read it sometimes. Here's a really pretty edition of Pride and Prejudice. So some classics mostly, and then I moved all of these were on the shelves last time you saw my shelves. They were the other way. Dracula's upside down, so let's fix that. And I think they look really nice just all put together, and they look nice with the red below. So that's just 2 shelves in the entryway. The rest is like backpacks and shoes. Not very exciting. Okay, so now we are in the bedroom shelves. They basically, like obviously you can see, they kind of serve as bedside tables, kind of. So up here it's just all classics in the bedroom. So I really didn't organize it in any particular way other than just classics. So there's no like rules for the shelf really. Like my little Alice collection is there. All of my Fahrenheit collection is on the other side. Like it makes sense, but it's just not like super organized, but I know where everything is. And then you can see I slipped in Harry Potter down here. On the other side, we have some vintage books up here. Those I use a lot in my Bookstagram photos. Then we have what is my husband's TBR, which has not been touched. This is me peer pressuring him right now. And then probably because he keeps reading books, I make him read, so he doesn't really even have the chance. Then there's Lord of the Rings. I have 2 different editions there. Sherlock Holmes, and then all my Fahrenheits are here. Like where's my oldest one? This was my original copy. It's been well read, as you can see. I stole that from my high school. And there is Earth Abides. This is a book my husband and I really love. We both read it and recommend it to everyone all the time, and no one reads it, so we're trying to force you guys into it one day. So then right here is like my husband's like bedside table type situation, and usually like what he's currently reading or just finished or keeps meaning to read. And then the ones below that are our like children's classics, so like Secret Garden, our little collection there of those books, and Grimm's Fairy Tales, Shel Silverstein, all the good stuff. So yeah, that is pretty much it for all of our shelves. I really like our bedroom shelves. So that's pretty much it. That's how things got rearranged. Thanks so much for watching and hanging out with me on this video today. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a quick thumbs up. Before you go, drop a comment below. And if you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, but you like all things bookish, then I'm your girl. So go ahead, press that subscribe button, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.